again, thank you for joining us. We are Chris and Mike, and she's Michelle. This is Chris and Mike Show. We are actually broadcasting live on the YouTube as well as Twitch right now. So I was talking to my son Jake earlier, Mike, and I told him, dude, we'll be on YouTube at 3. Join in. He's like, okay, Pops, I will. Even
Right
though
on.
even though he's doing marine things, he can still, he's in the office today, so that's kind of fun. So I'm in Arizona, Mike's in Illinois. Where are you at, Michelle?
Pennsylvania.
I was going to say Pennsylvania pre-show because I kind of picked up the accent.
Yeah.
Right? And my wife's from Punxsutawney. I'm sure you know where that is.
Yes, I do. Well, we're just an hour from Pittsburgh, so
Okay,
yeah,
good old-
definitely. You could always pick up the Pennsylvania accent.
Right? Good old Punxsutawney Phil. So are you a Steelers fan? Let's get the serious stuff out of the way. Since you're from Pennsylvania, you a Steelers fan?
I'm not much into sports, but of course, the Steelers definitely. Yeah.
Okay, so-
they win. Yep.
Cool. So you're super excited about Aaron Rodgers being your quarterback now? Say no.
The right answer would be no.
Not much
No.
into sports.
No. Why? That's why you just say no. You just say no.
I
It's
will
like,
ask my husband.
yeah, your husband will agree. It's a no.
I think he's probably going to say no as well.
He said
Most
no.
likely.
Yeah. There's a meme out there where he's on it's an old guy. I don't know who he is, but he's like the Steelers introducing their new quarterback, and he's like an old dude on a walker and shit. It's like call it a career, man. Call it a career. So okay, so we can't talk sports because she doesn't like sports. Wow. Okay, that's fine. Not everybody's a sports nut like we are, but we're not really sports nut. We just live in the world.
We just watch it for entertainment.
We do watch it for entertainment and fun. So let's chat a little bit about you, Michelle. Where are you? Are you originally from Pennsylvania?
Yes.
Okay. And what is it? Why are you here today? Why did you want to come on our show? Let's chat a little bit about that. Give us your elevator speech. We're on an elevator with Mike and I. We're going up the 30th floor. You got like a minute to tell us who you are and why you want to come on this rapidly growing, fast-paced, energized podcast that's taking over the world. 21 countries, mind you.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, my name is Michelle Steiner. I live in Pennsylvania with my husband Ron. Our 2 cats, Jack and Sparrow.
2 cats. Oh, is it from Pirates of the Caribbean?
Yes, when we adopted them, the people that we got them from were huge Disney fans, and we
Okay.
thought the names were just so cute. We didn't want to change them.
Nice.
That's
Well, yeah.
awesome.
Jack
Yeah.
and
I love it.
Sparrow. Yeah,
Yep.
Captain Jack
And
Sparrow. There you
That's
go.
right. And
Right
I
on.
also I work in a school as a para-educator or a
Cool.
teacher's aide
Okay.
for students who have disabilities. And
Nice.
I also I'm a writer, I'm a speaker, and I'm a photographer. And I have a
Hmm.
blog called Michelle's Mission where I write about my life with having a learning disability.
Okay.
And my goal or the mission statement of where I'm at is to encourage, empower, and educate people with and without disabilities.
That's awesome.
Nice. I'm Googling it right now. Michelle's Mission. Where are you? Oh, that was weird. I went to AI mode. Wow. Holy smokes. So Google has this AI mode and there's lots of Michelle missions. So how do I find you?
I am www.michellesmission.com.
Yeah, that's what I did. Weird. Hold on.
I can
Get out
also-
of the thing. Get out of the. There you go. Michelle. Oh, Michelle's Mission. That was my
Yeah.
bad. I didn't pluralize that.
You got to pluralize it.
Gotta pluralize it. Plural. Come
I
on,
can always
stupid
put the
thing.
link in the
Michelle's
chat,
Mission.
too, no big deal.
You're all good. Michelle's Mission. There it is. A blog to encourage, empower, and educate people with and without abilities. I like that. Outstanding. And you have a podcast.
I don't have a podcast, but I put where the
You've
links
been-
of
wow.
where I podcast up and on.
You have been on a lot of podcasts. Wow. This is going to be the most fun one you've ever been on ever in your entire life.
Of course.
You're gonna just,
We guarantee
you're
it.
just, you're just gonna be like, wow, where have these guys been all my lives? Find your wings and soar. I like that. I like that. Very cool. And so the nice thing about this, people watching and tuning in on YouTube and Twitch, pluralize it, michellesmission.com. On the top, it has her Instagram, her Facebook, all the resources, how to contact her. There's a press, there's all the news articles and stuff. There's a store, the podcast she's been on, all her social feeds and her blog and stuff. I'm a huge blogger too, so I dig the whole blog concept. So love that. And do you blog actually on the site, or is it somewhere else you blog and you RSS feed it?
I blog on the site.
Okay,
Yes.
cool. Right on. Outstanding. Wow, that's a lot of blogs, man.
Yeah.
How long have you been doing that?
I've done that for about 5 years now. I started whenever the pandemic began.
Okay.
I had a grant from Disability Pride in Philadelphia.
Cool.
So that encouraged me to start that. But I wrote about having a disability a few years prior to that. In fact, writing and reading has always been really big in my life, especially when I was in school and I was being bullied as a kid. Writing and reading became my world. And I was really lucky as a teenager that I found an adult writing group whenever I was 16 or 17.
Okay.
And I mean, these people really encouraged me to write about having a disability. And 20 some years later, we still meet once a month and talk about our writing. and
Wow.
we're in each
That's so cool.
yeah. At the time, though, I decided, oh, I'm just going to put that on the shelf. That's way too personal. And I wrote some really bad poetry and some other things I would not want to read today. But when I
Well,
finally-
everybody's got to start
Yeah,
somewhere.
exactly.
Yeah,
Nothing.
So, for the
Go ahead.
people that are listening at home, obviously, you know, you're talking about having your own disabilities. Reading and writing are not one of them. So, what are your disabilities?
I have dyscalculia, which is a math disability. I have.
What is that for the people
Yeah,
that
explain.
don't
Explain.
know? I
it.
don't
Yeah,
even know what
yeah,
that is.
I don't know either. So treat us like we're 5-year-olds and give us the kindergarten explanation
Right.
of that,
When you
please.
have dyscalculia, it means that I have trouble with math, but it goes beyond just being bad at math.
Okay.
This is something where I can understand very basic concepts, but it capped off at a very early stage of that. And I also, it impacts me outside of the classroom. I will confuse my right from my left. I cannot read the face of an analog clock, despite having many interventions with that.
Still to this day?
Yep, still to this
Wow,
day.
that's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, if you give me a running start, I can usually keep track of it. But if I would just do a blind read, I can't tell you what time it is. And
So now with the math, is it just something you cannot do? Can you not put the numbers together? Does it get scrambled in your brain, or, you know, kind of describe to myself and the people that are listening, what are you experiencing when you're trying to do math where the rest of us all say we suck at it, but we can figure it out,
Right.
right?
Right. Well, for me, I have not memorized all my addition, all my subtraction, multiplication, all those tables. Have not had that memorized. But
Okay.
even if you would give me a calculator, it's still really a struggle for me past a very basic level.
Wow.
It's just really trying to figure out how numbers will work. So you might give me a formula, and sometimes that working memory just doesn't do that. We don't know for sure why certain people are just really bad at it.
Okay.
And why people have that. But I've always struggled with that. We would get the worksheets and I just couldn't do a lot of that. And I really had a lot of difficulty. And I mean, everything is what we might even say goes to one source. I mean, I'm also not able to drive, but that also is the visual perception. And it also goes to the hand dexterity. Everything just seems like it comes to a brain-based.
So do you not have the proper depth perception? Is that why you can't drive?
Exactly.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the first time I ever got high, I felt like I was. This is like when I was in high school. Okay, so I'm not a stoner or anything, but we talked about this on our Ozzy Osbourne tribute show because
Say
you
that like
realize
it's
the
a
first
bad
time I ever.
thing.
It's not a bad thing, but some people, you know. So I don't think Jake ever realizes that I got stoned. So now if my son's watching, he's gonna be like, "What, Dad?" So
On stage even.
right, why? Shh, Mike. So that was an accident. So, but I remember the first time ever doing that because it was with my brother and a couple of his friends, and it was that whole peer pressure thing. You got to do this, man, because whatever. And Ozzy was playing, and that was my first introduction to Ozzy. So, by the time it had kicked in, and we went home to get money, to go to 7-Eleven, Munchies. I remembered I felt like I was walking on the moon, right? So that in my head obviously was a depth perception thing because I thought the ground was a lot. I don't know if it was lower or higher. So I
You
was
felt
thinking-
like your feet were way off the
right.
ground.
So
Yeah.
so the reason I'm bringing this up because I want to compare it. Is that what depth perception's like for you? The visual perception, like you don't know how to. I don't want to sound stupid, but you don't. Like you put your foot down, but in your brain you're like, oh shit, is that actually the ground?
So
Does
an
that
easy
make
way for
sense?
you, it does.
Okay.
But an easier way for you to make sense of it, Chris, as a driver, is you can tell how quickly you have to slow down based on how far the truck or the car in front of you is, correct?
Okay, yeah.
She would never be able to do that. She would
Oh!
rear end people all the time.
I would because
Damn.
I mean,
She can't tell how far that is in front of her.
Oh, that's crazy.
That's what your depth perception does
Okay.
for you.
Where I
Wow.
am, like in space. I mean, gym class was a nightmare for me.
Wow.
I flinch every time a ball comes in my direction.
I bet.
Oh my.
Yeah, so that was really hard for me to be able to do a lot of that. And my parents kind of knew whenever I turned 16 that this was going to be an issue. We didn't know how big of an issue it was going to be, though. So we waited a year. And then we lived out in the country, and they
Nice.
had me do little things before we even considered studying for a test or anything.
Okay.
We had this field, and they said, "Well, why don't you go mow the field?" And instead of making these perfect straight lines, I ended up making circles. So I always say that I now know where crop circles come from.
It's Michelle did it. Michelle did it. You've heard it here first in the Chris and Mike show. The crop circle
mystery
epidemic
has been
or
solved.
mystery has been solved. It's Michelle. Michelle did it. Dude, ratings through the roof.
Oh, that's great. I love it.
And then my parents had me drive up. We had a really long driveway, and I was in the car with my mom, and she said, "Well, do you want to drive?" And I said, "Okay." So we drove up the driveway, and thank God my mom was in the car with me, or else I would have crashed into the family garage.
Oh God.
And
no.
this is what my mom said. This is beyond just somebody. It's not going to be the next greatest athlete or something like to that extreme. We knew that this was going to have to get looked at. So I was really lucky. I got connected with an agency called Office for Vocational Rehabilitation, and they paid for all of my years of college, but they also paid for me to get a driver's license evaluation. They don't do that now. They won't pay for it, but they did in the past. Thankfully, they did. And it was at a rehabilitation hospital. And I can remember we went through a whole battery of tests. I mean, I passed. I knew what to do if the car broke down. I knew, what steps I was, the responsibility of being a driver, the vision test, perfect vision, to be able to pass that. And then we got to the last part, which was visual perception. And she said, based upon your score, I don't think that it's wise for you to get your license at this time. And it just felt like 100 pounds was lifted off of me at that point.
So here's a question. So you're 16. When did this condition start presenting itself? Were you younger and just didn't realize it?
It did when I was in kindergarten. They knew
Okay.
when I was very young that I had that. I went to the eye doctor, and they gave different things for me to do to try to with my visual perception, with my eye-hand coordination. I remember
Okay.
my dad had a wiffle ball or a bat, and then a wiffle ball, and he tied it to the ceiling, and then I had to hit the ball. That was one of my exercises, and I had to walk. He made a balance beam for me, and I walked across that. But
So how hard was it to hit the wiffle ball hanging from the ceiling?
it was somewhat of a challenge, but I
Yeah.
got better at doing that.
Right.
We tried to do different things to try to see if that was going to work
Okay.
or not, and just it really didn't work in that thing. But I mean, I haven't let it stop me. I still go to the gym and
Cool.
also go to group exercise classes, and I just have to realize, okay, yeah, these people are in front. I just have to make enough space and and just give myself that grace and do stuff like that. But that was one of the big factors that they did with just seeing about
Yeah.
driving.
Do you feel like because you've been disadvantaged in these several ways, do you notice things that you're better at than other people? Are you aware of those things?
Yes, one of the things is with taking. I'm also a photographer.
Right.
And people will tell me that I bring out the details in a flower that they miss.
Oh
And
wow.
when I don't have a ride, I mean, I'm really lucky. My husband can take me to work. I have a great coworker who takes me home at the end of the day. But sometimes I don't have a ride to get places, and I live in a central location.
Right.
So I get that literally that chance to stop and smell the roses.
Literally.
And I get to notice these details that other people don't get to see. I get to see the flower. I get to see other really neat things, and I can capture that. And I just think to myself, rather than being sad, that's something that I'm able to do that other people don't get that chance because they're busy in their lives.
So you find yourself literally stopping to smell the roses. You're paying attention to detail in things that you notice other people just whiz on by and don't even give it a second thought.
Nope, they don't.
That's really cool.
That is cool.
And
What
another
do you-
thing too, I think, is empathy. When I work
Yeah.
with my students, I'm able to really understand what a lot of them are going through. Not every single one, but a lot of times it's like hearing a recording of myself. I hate my disability. I wish I didn't have it. I'm not smart. And I get to tell them it's not a bad thing to have a disability. And I get to show them how to advocate. And I think I would always be geared towards helping people, but I don't think I would know how it would honestly feel if I didn't go through it myself.
I don't have I don't have a disability, but where I'm going to be able to sympathize with you and I'm going to have gone through the same thing is I had allergies when I was a kid, so obviously kids
Yeah.
I guess you could say I was bullied, but I got tired of hearing about it. It's like you can't do this, you can't do that. Kids are mean.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing is I was sick a lot, so I was isolated. I couldn't go out for recess. I couldn't participate in gym class. So I spent a lot of time reading, and by myself or with the teacher. And the empathy part, I that really hits me hard because I think a lot of my empathy came from that. You can see when other people are different or disadvantaged than you are, you're not going to be the first person to make fun of that person, right? You're going to try and pick them up however you can.
Exactly. And that is one of the things you can, yeah, you're going to be able to uplift them. And I also show them how to advocate. And I always just say this, that for my students one day will end up leaving me. And I hope that they're able to graduate, achieve every single dream that they went after. But for a lot of them, their disability is going to stay. So
Well,
they
and
have to learn. Yeah.
yeah, and the power that you have having those disabilities, they have something to relate to, which is cool. Because like my grandson, little man, he has a little bit speech issues, so he has to go to a speech therapist to kind of work with certain enunciations like the th sound. It was the last one we did. But I could see if we can't get that cured as he moves along in school, he's going to get bullied and teased and things like that. And to me, it's always more impactful when the person that, in your case, you're helping the students around you, but you've been there, done that. So they have somebody they can attach themselves to. You know what I mean? Am I making sense?
Absolutely.
Sometimes I
Yes.
don't feel like I'm making sense. So, but you have that experience, like been there, done that. So the struggles firsthand. You know what it's like to go to school and get, like Mike said, picked on, maybe bullied, things like that, because you're just a little bit different than the norm. That I think is really cool that you do that, because it should empower them. That's what I was looking for. It should be able to empower them more, because hey, Michelle overcame this, and now look what she's doing. She's helping others, and she's got a blog, and she's got this, all these different outlets that she's doing. That's cool. I like that. I like the fact that you're using that as a vehicle to help others and bring light to their lives, as opposed to them just everybody. Because when you have those kind of things, right, there's a depression that can set in, right? Woe is me. Why am I different?
Sure.
Then self-pity and all that kind of
Especially when you're
nonsense.
getting picked on constantly,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Exactly, and that's one of the things. A lot of them, I'm also really good with kids that might be getting bullied by somebody else.
Yeah.
What do you tell those kids? I would be interested for the people that are listening at home, if they have family members with special needs, maybe this will be something that'll help them. What do you
Yeah.
tell those kids that come to you and they say, Miss Michelle, I'm getting bullied all the time. What do I do?
Well, one of the things I do is I always give them the option if they want to report it. It's always an option. I say it's your choice, but I said there are some things you might be able to do that might help you along. Like, for example, if it's the lunchroom and somebody's sitting at your lunch table and you're getting picked on, maybe go try sit at somebody else's table.
Sure.
And then if they ask you about it, just be like, okay, just trying out a different lunch table. I mean, the little things like that. I try to tell them to not to give that ammo to fuel to the fire either. So if you know that if they know that it's making you upset, that's going to make it a lot worse. So sometimes just maybe ignoring certain things. I mean, obviously, if it does involve something that's abuse, we do want that to be taken care of and handled. But I find that a lot of times when kids just learn that, I'm not going to show that it really bothers me, they'll move on to pick onto somebody else.
True.
Sure.
And that's what I try to do with a lot of them. And sometimes I'll even take them out of the room. I remember I had a couple students that I was working with last year, and it was like during a study hall for people that had disabilities for our students. And the one girl was getting picked on by a couple of boys, and I'd have her sit beside me. And then if they tried picking on her, I would just kind of deflect, like, oh, oh no, she didn't do that. That was me. And they didn't know what to say. And then sometimes we even went to an art room where we would make crafts during class, so she had her work done. And we would talk about what was going on, and that got her out of the room, away from them. But I just really encouraged them not to make a big deal out of that.
That's a really good approach, right?
That's solid advice, and that's
Yeah.
one thing that I've always done my whole life. But I always joke with Chris, I'm not big enough to be picking on people, right? So I always got to think of ways to diffuse the situation, and a lot of times it is just to remove yourself from that situation.
Yeah.
Just say, I'm not going to entertain you picking on me. It's as long as it, like you said, as long as it's not abusive. If somebody's abusing somebody physically, then we have a whole different conversation. But
Right.
I was alluding to more what you were saying is, how do we talk people down off the ledge and just make them uninterested in what's going on? And a lot of times it is ignoring them.
Yeah, exactly.
They feed off that.
Yeah.
They think they're gonna make you cry, or they're gonna ruin your day, or whatever you can think of that bullies do.
And I had that experience growing up. I can remember being really emotional about that, or just getting really upset. I had one girl in particular. It was, it even got to the point of threats. And luckily, I was seeing a guy that was a couple years older than I was, and I was telling him about it. And he goes, I think she's just blowing smoke. Next time she says something, just be real casual about it. And I'll never forget, this is when we had payphones, and I was walking through the hall, and she told me, I'm going to kill you, and I hate you. And I said, oh, that's nice. Have a great day. And that incredulous look on her face was just priceless. And I was really lucky, though, that's all it was just smoke and mirrors.
Right.
What would have been great, because the payphones, if you had a quarter, you could have Travis Tritter. Oh, here's a quarter. Call someone who cares.
That's true.
Talk about an irrelevant song now, because people are like, what, quarters? What do you need a quarter to call somebody for? I have a cell phone.
Yeah, well,
Exactly.
first off, what's a quarter?
Right?
These kids don't even know what money is.
They don't.
And see, there's something to be said too, ignoring it, because you have to be a very strong-willed person to ignore somebody that's constantly berating you, or not physically, but vocally, verbally, and digging
It's
at you
hard to
mentally.
do as a kid.
Yeah,
man. It
yeah.
really is.
It's
really
and
is.
it's because it's hard enough to be a kid, and then you got to go be a teenager, then you got to go through puberty, and so then you're dealing with this on top of all of that. That's a drag. That would be a drag. Yeah, terrible. But look at you now. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, and
so married? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mike.
No,
Oh,
no.
yeah.
Go ahead.
I am. I've been married for 10 years now.
Right on. Any
Nice.
kids?
No kids, 2 cats, as I said.
Just the
those are
cats.
our kids.
Jack and Sparrow. Okay, cool. And then what do you do? What do you do for fun? Because obviously you're not living in the classroom and stuff like that.
I have a lot of friends where we do like a lot of reading, like a lot of writing and things. We
Okay.
really like to do that. My husband and I love to travel.
Cool.
We love to go and visit museums and gardens. We were at State College over the weekend celebrating his birthday.
Nice.
And we went to a museum, and
Is that where Penn State is?
that is.
Okay.
I spoke at a conference last year, and he really liked going to the museum.
That's the second largest outdoor football stadium in the world.
Wow.
University of Michigan is the first.
I was going to ask what's first.
Yeah.
So what's your husband do?
He works for a call center for cable and internet. So.
Oh, right on. So he's the guy that you yell at. My internet's not working.
Yeah, and he gets to fix it at the house.
Well, sir, did you turn it off? I don't want to turn it off. I want it to work, man. Come on. You just should know the problem.
And
I'm
I need it to
calling you.
work right now. I'm
Yeah.
sure he always hears that.
Yeah.
It
yeah.
can't be tomorrow.
Have the patience sometimes.
Yeah. I think that'd be a stressful job, like right next to, maybe one notch below the 911 operator, because you're always dealing with people who are frustrated and angry and mad and, So you referenced on your website here, because I have your website up, boys and girls, if you want to go there, it's michellesmission.com, and that's pluralized. There's a massive blog in there. You have Social Feeds podcast. That's all about podcasts she's been on. She has some press releases in there. You have a store. What's in the store?
I sell my prints.
Your photography.
Of my photography. Yeah.
There you go.
Oh, I'm
That's
gonna have to go look
wow.
at that.
What is, you got a pink flower. What is that?
a pink lily that is.
Oh, there it is. Hello. See, rating's fundamental. If I would have just looked to the right, I would have saw photo of pink lily. Wow. Oh, I like the rose. The rose in the middle with the I don't know what kind of rose that is, but it's gorgeous. Very nice.
Thank you.
Oh, there's Jack and Sparrow. Meow.
Sure. Oh yeah.
Chris has a love-hate relationship
I
with
do.
cats.
I don't like cats, but when they're on a computer, it's fine because they're not bothering me.
I was referring to the ones that kept destroying your backyard.
Right. Oh, I know. Yeah,
No,
absolutely.
I hate
Yeah.
that. I mean, yeah.
No, it's not.
They
it's not
were
your
his
fault.
neighbors, neglectful owners.
Yeah. Nobody told us there was 40 feral cats all around us when we moved in because who owned our house was an entity, not an individual. So there's nothing to disclose.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's the short version of the long story is my neighbor across the street thought I was killing, skinning, and burying them in my backyard. So much so she called the police.
Oh my
The
gosh.
police sized this up for about 5 minutes. Realized, well, she's a whack-a-mole, and then so we let them in the house. When they walked into our entryway, they saw the family portrait of which, at the time, that family portrait was my wife and I, our daughter who was I think probably 7 months pregnant, and our son who just graduated boot camp as a Marine. So they looked right at that like, oh, military family. I'm like, yeah. So then all of a sudden the tension went away. And then so we took them out back, turned on all the pasture lights, and they saw there was no fresh holes
Yeah.
and no dead cats. And then so as they were leaving, I'm like, I know who called me, who called you on me. So you can just go across the street to them, tell them I said hi. I know it's you.
And then
Yeah.
as soon as the police left, he went,
Yep.
they're in the basement.
Yeah. So that's fun. And then right. Oh, they didn't catch it. And then the neighbor next to us, he decided that he was going to put a camera up on the peak of his house, in his words, to watch the chicken hawks. Yet he'd been there for 4 years. So they bought into their bullshit that we're killing cats. Nobody's paying attention to the fact that four houses down was this 14-acre parcel that was being turned over from farm to subdivision. Nobody took into account that there's like 3 other people that moved in the neighborhood north of me. I'd been here since August. This was February, and all of a sudden I'm the one that's making cats disappear. Hello. Coyotes are
They
rampant.
really
in our
didn't think a lot
Yeah,
of you in the
we have to-
beginning.
No. Well, they did. And then that for some, well, the problem is we came and we cleaned up the house. The house was a mess. The yard was a mess. So, we weren't gentrificating the street, but we came into a house that was in disarray.
Yeah.
We bought it for a specific reason to help build something for my daughter and grandson to live. So it was one of those things where we had, we were lucky enough to be able to buy it with extra money from our house sale and clean things up. And like we had 87 tons of crap taken out of our front yard, Michelle. That's how bad this front yard was. And it's an acre. So just imagine an overgrown acre of grass, right?
Right.
So as that whole kind of thing fell into our lap, then the neighbor's like, "Oh, I'm looking for chicken hawks." So being me, because I work out daily, I would go out back and after I got done working out, strip butt ass naked and wave to their camera because it could see right in our backyard. And I did that until finally my hop seed was tall enough that they could no longer see me. So every day they had a free show if they wanted one. Because he claimed he couldn't see my backyard. But I would walk in the middle of the backyard and I could see the little red dots of the camera. And if you can see the red dots of the camera, it can see you.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
They're those people, disrespectful assholes who feel like they're entitled, the mayor of the street, even though, he's only lived here, we've been here for 4 years, so they lived here 8 years. But, there's that. We don't talk to them. We just, it is what it is. So, that's my life in a nutshell. So let's talk about your writing because Michelle's mission.com is where you can find her. And you referenced before the show that you have some stuff published. So let's talk about that. What have you have published?
Sure. I write a lot about my life with a disability.
Okay.
On my blog, I do a lot of metaphors to explain that. Nature metaphors, I might talk about the process of my disability.
Okay.
Just accepting that might be like a flower blooming. But a lot of the other stuff that I have published is also just about different things that I've experienced. I can remember my very first article that got published on the Mighty was whenever we moved into our house and I could not unlock the door because I had limited hand dexterity in both of my hands. And I was so frustrated. That just gave me that courage to write about it because there was a call. What's a seemingly easy task for other people, but it's hard for you with yours?
Sure.
And I got a great response with that. People were like, well, that's my story.
Hmm.
And I thought I was the only one that struggled with that. And that encouraged me to write more articles for The Mighty. I also expanded to write different articles for other places as well. Sometimes there might be a prompt that I might follow and it'll get published. I also have stories published in two anthologies and a third one coming out in November, hopefully. And
Congratulations.
thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome.
My first anthology I got published in it was a workshop that I went to, and it was called Rediscovering Your Story. And a NAMI group had this, and I was the only one that had a learning disability. Other people had some mental health issues. We had some other ones that had addiction issues in the past and were working on being sober with their lives.
Yeah.
And we had different stories that we wrote. Some of them were about our hair, and some of it was about what's your favorite place to go to. And I also had the chance to write about what is the most important lesson that I've learned in my life. And it's for purchase on Amazon. And the second anthology is The Baggage We Carry. And that was the prompt. And I wrote about the baggage of having a learning disability and some of that has happened. And that is also, that's available for purchase as well. And the third one will be through our lens, and it is the stories of people that have different kinds of disabilities. A lot of people that are neurodiverse, like I'm going to talk about having a learning disability, but other people in the book, they have autism or other disabilities as well.
That's and see the cool thing about writing about what you struggle with, like you said, then other people read it, we're like, oh, I that's me. We had a family member who went through the perils of heroin and meth addiction, and I was very vocal about it, and I was out there about how easy it was to get it. This was well before it was, public billboards and stuff. This is where, if you looked at my family from the outside in, you would think there's no way on God's green earth this is going to affect Chris's family. So when I dropped my original, back then it was a Facebook Live about it. Last time I found it, because now it's just kind of lost somewhere in the World Wide Web, it was 67,000 views for this 15-minute discussion about how easy it was to get heroin. If you got $20, it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter where you live, it doesn't matter what your economic status is. And I would have people randomly walk up to me because they recognize me from that, thanking me, because then that empowered them to have a conversation with their son or with their daughter. My wife and I would walk into stores and people would be like, oh, there's the queen, because I would reference her as the queen based on that. And the connections that made alone, just in opening other people's eyes and having those conversations that they never thought they had to have, because nobody realized for $20 you can get black tar heroin.
Yeah.
And this was a very normal suburban community in the East Valley of Arizona that you just never would have thought this was relevant. So what you're doing is great, because then it makes people realize that other people are going through those same struggles, which then sheds light on it, which then sparks conversation, which then helps things get turned around to the positive instead of the negative. So kudos to you for doing that. Absolutely.
Just being able to talk about it. So many people
Yes.
just won't talk about it.
Yeah.
Right.
They bury their head in the sand and act like it's not supposed to have happened. If it happens, it happens. You have to be able to know what to do and how to deal with it, right? You can't just say it'll rectify itself, because addiction doesn't rectify itself.
No.
Disabilities don't rectify themselves. You have to learn how to live with them. And in an addict's case, you can overcome it, right? In your case, you're not going to overcome your disability. So it's really cool that you're showing people that not only they're not alone. I agree with Chris in a lot of things that were wrong with me. Just knowing that I wasn't the only one, was very helpful.
I agree 100% because when I was growing up, I didn't know a whole lot of people that had learning disabilities that were successful adults that went to college and
Right.
were female and struggled with math because most of everything that was out there, sorry guys, it was mainly white men that were the struggle with reading or paying attention, and I didn't know anybody with that. And one of the things too is whenever we started with the internet, there's a lot of people out there. I got to meet other people that have
Yeah.
my disability and are girls, and some are guys too. I mean, it definitely affects everybody. You know, it doesn't discriminate. But it was just really amazing though to meet other people that, okay, that's what I struggle with. I'm not the only person that does that, and coming and talking about it because
Yeah, that part's huge.
yeah,
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 it's
because I
common.
wouldn't have
Yeah,
mind.
it's
Yeah,
common denominator. It's like if you like the Steelers, right?
yeah,
And you were wearing a Steelers jersey, it's you don't have to know the person wearing a football jersey when you run up to them at the store. You can just make a comment about their team, and you have an instant dialogue for 20 minutes.
Yep.
You know,
exactly.
So
it's I
true.
mean, right. So it's the same kind of concept. Now, one of the things you referenced something with your hands. What is that?
That is with being having limited hand dexterity. I didn't know that till I was an adult.
Okay.
When I was a kid, things would drop out of my hands, and I have terrible handwriting, and people would just think, oh, she's clumsy,
Hmm.
or that people would really put it as a character flaw with my handwriting. And I
Oh.
learned how to type, and that was a game changer. But we just thought, okay, she's clumsy, and that's just okay. Maybe it's learning disability related, whatever. But I was in for an evaluation because I wanted to. I was thinking about going back to grad school, and I remember they never tested me for that, but they did at this one, and actually a funny story. The whole evaluation is 8 hours long, and so they tell you, okay, order food and just you get a lunch break. So I ordered food, and then they took me up to get evaluated for having with my hands, and I sat up there, and they blindfolded me, and I
Huh.
had to put shapes in a shape sorter.
Oh.
And right as I'm blindfolded and putting shapes in a shape sorter, my food comes, and the delivery driver brought it over, and I had to sign a paper blindfolded. And I just wonder what that delivery driver thought was going on in that office. And it all made
Wow.
sense after they told me I had limited hand dexterity in both of my hands. That I wasn't just a klutz. I just didn't have the handwriting of a serial killer. I mean,
Yeah.
there was a reason behind
But
it.
you didn't find that out till you were an adult?
Yeah, in my 30s.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah,
Because earlier you mentioned the opening a door was hard. So then,
yeah,
so I didn't. And being a writer too, and typing, my high school class typing was the only thing that's carried me with me my entire life. So I didn't honestly for whatever reason I didn't go there when you referenced the hand issues, and I was like, wow, I wonder how she writes. I was thinking it was like talk to text or something, because I thought your hands were like I couldn't like just weren't functional.
right.
You know.
No, they are functional. I can move them, but
Okay.
if you look at the scores that when they compared my testing with, um, I'm on the level of somebody that has brain damage with hands, just
Really?
with how they move. Yeah.
Is that what they
Wow.
attribute it to? Is the wiring in your brain is just not
In some ways, yes, it's the wiring, and I always think. I mean, I was not given a clear answer on that, but I think that it all goes back to one source. It's just my brain is wired, and those signals that it sends out to my hands, like it does with visual perception and everything, it's not working that way. So I'm like at the negative, like one hand. I think my dominant hand has more, but my other one, it's like you're in like -0 almost
Wow.
with that. But thankfully, I came across a diagnosis at a really good time, and where we're at. There's a lot more than when I was a kid growing up for people that have that. There are key helpers if you want to be able to unlock a door and lock it. There's jar openers that
No.
can work, bottle openers, an electric can opener. We figured that out when I was in my 20s, and I could not use a manual one. It looked like trying to operate. It was like trying to operate a spaceship. So, I
Wow.
mean, there's a lot that has come out, and of course, if we go out in public and there's a door and it's an automatic door, I always like those, and that's the beauty of that. It's universal design, so
Yeah.
everybody can do that. Whether it's a mom that has a stroller and she's trying to wrangle that and her kids and trying to have grocery bags, that automatic door helps somebody out. People movers, if you go to the airport, elevators, they can help, and ramps and rails. Those are all things that can help anybody, not just the person with a disability.
Sure. I love the walkways, the moving walkways,
Yeah.
moving sidewalks in airports. Those
Yes.
are game changers, you know?
Yeah, those
Yeah.
are huge.
Yeah, especially when you have to go. I mean, the Arizona airport's so spread out. Yeah, but yeah, those are definitely game changers for sure.
Hmm.
Right on. What else you want to talk about, Michelle?
I don't know.
So you have a booking. So what is it that you want to get booked for? Is this just for people you like events? Like what do? You speak to people. I obviously podcasts.
I do on podcasts. I also have conferences that I do as well.
Okay.
I'm going to be speaking at a conference, PA conference for the blind. And I'm
Okay.
going to be talking about resources when somebody graduates. Like, what are some of
Oh.
those resources that are available?
Oh, that's
Okay.
really
I
cool.
also speak on transitioning when somebody is done with school. I got to speak in Penn State last year about that, and I also had the opportunity to talk about that at another conference. Well, actually, it was a women's empowerment breakfast a number of years ago, and I got to speak at a disability symposium. So I really just try to go out and to be able to share my story and to be able to help other people.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and so the About Me sheet, it's an invisible disability, which like we talked about, you wouldn't know because of
Right.
what it is. You have a bachelor's degree in community programming for Americans with disabilities.
Yes.
You've been published in the Nonverbal Learning Project, uh, Discalula blog. Did I say
Dyscalculia
that right?
blog. Yeah.
Okay. The Reluctant Spoonie. That's a fun name. Um, the Calopine Collective, Imagine the World as One Magazine, a World Gathering. That's amazing. All the like legit. I love the fact that you're out there sharing your story, sharing your journey, empowering others, giving them resources to better their lives with just the experience and the knowledge that you've gained by going through your struggles, which is just amazing. We love that on the show. That's why we do this. We like to talk to
Right.
people and learn things and expand our knowledge and understanding of, I call it life resume. Um, that's fantastic.
Yeah, so like when you go out and you talk to these people, what are things that they're not expecting that you encountered that what kind of advice do you give them? Here's what you're not expecting. You're going from high school life, college life, whatever, to now you're going to be expected to take care of yourself as an adult, right?
Right. What I tell a lot of people is I can give you the names of the resources that are out there, but it's really up to you to be the one that you seek out those services. Like when I was in college, it was up to me. I had definitely registered with the Office for Students with Disabilities, but I had to go up to professors and I had to tell them I have a disability and these are the services that I need and to have that confidence. And I did not have that confidence when I went to community college. And a lot of that was because of what other people told me. I was told by a learning support teacher that you can't go to college. You're bad at math. Why don't you go to a trade school? Well,
Really?
you're interested in me. I had a psychiatrist in an evaluation that told me, well, based on these scores, you're not going to be able to go beyond community college. And I also find it funny whenever I told them that I wanted to write and wanted to do newscasts, that they told me that that would be beyond my capabilities. And
I hate when adults do that to kids. I just
But
do.
but question though, did that motivate you to be like, I'm gonna do this and I'll be like, haha, look at me now, bitches.
Yeah, but do you know how many, not to interrupt you, Michelle, I'll let you answer the question. That's a great question. But do you know how many not Michelles there are out there?
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah.
99 dreams were shattered by that attitude, and Michelle persevered through. So,
Yeah.
thank goodness she's out there. But is that why you persevered?
in the very beginning, I did not think I could do it. And I
Right.
wasn't there like, haha, I'm going to do it anyways. I went forward scared.
Okay.
I didn't know if this was going to work.
So you
out.
kind of believed what they were telling you.
I did.
That's
And
awesome.
I took that into college. And that was probably my hardest years, I think, were community college as an adult. One of
Because to
those-
talk to you now, you're super confident.
Yeah,
You're
you're
smiling
exuding
the whole
confidence.
time.
Yeah.
You know what you're talking about. That's awesome.
Right.
Yeah,
I
you
had-
own it.
I really had support from friends, definitely. They couldn't fix my disability. They couldn't go in there and do that. And that's something I tell my students all the time. Some of them will say, "Oh, I have this mental health disorder. I take medication. I don't need this. I don't need this class." And I say, "You know what? You can take the medicine, but it's only going to get you so far. You have to be the one that does all the work, all the hard work on that." So that's another thing I tell them is you have to do a lot of that work. I'll tell people that. And I was afraid, especially whenever I went to community college, faced more stigma. Had a professor that told me I was going to have limited job choices. If I asked for a calculator, I was told we use our brains in this class. But I just pushed forward, and I
That's
was
so
able-
awful.
Yeah.
And one of your advantages given to you to be in school with your disability was you were able to use a calculator, I'm sure, right? They couldn't deny you that?
Right, and I had specialized instruction, and I never got out of that for math. I got out of it for reading. I got out of it for a lot of different things.
So you ended up in general classes for like with all the other
Yep, and with
except for math?
except for math, and I had a resource room.
That's so
And-
impressive. Good for you.
Yeah, thank you. But I mean, it was academic. A lot of people thought, well, why don't you put her in yeah, AP biology or science class? And my parents were like, no, we're setting her up for success. We know what she can handle. And I was able to make honor roll, and I was in with academic kids for a lot of my classes, and I had those supports, but I still was
That's so awesome.
yeah, it really was. I had a test read aloud to me. I had extra time on my tests. And then when I went to college, once I went to university, that's when I got really serious about using all the services and advocacy. I didn't have the test read aloud to me, but I had extended test time on my test. I had tutoring. I actually got a note taker, and that was a game changer too, because I could focus on my class a lot more. And I had tutoring, and I also had professors that understood. And I was really lucky in both areas to have that in community college and at university. At community college, I was really fortunate to get a math waiver because of having the disability, and I was able to substitute another class. The professor could see I was really trying. I was going to class after class and was not able to pass any of the tests except for one of them. And I was doing tutoring, and the tutoring team didn't understand what was going on. But luckily, the Office for Students with Disabilities said, okay, why don't we at least try to submit a waiver, put all your documentation together, and I was granted that.
Cool.
And then when I got to university, I wasn't as fortunate with that. I had to take the class, and I can remember I took a philosophy-based math course, and I can remember I was in this determination of, well, do I take this or do I just take an algebra class? And I was sitting around, and there was a chess game, and I had someone said, hey, you want to play chess with me? And we played the shortest chess game in history, and it was no surprise that I lost. And I told the person, I said, I don't think that, I'm not good at math. We're trying to figure out what kind of math class to take. And I said, I'm thinking about doing the philosophy-based math. And he looked at me and goes, well, actually, I'm in that department. And I'd really suggest that you take the philosophy-based math class because guys in my department aren't that nice about it. And I had the most wonderful professor that knew I was trying. I was going to tutoring, I was going to class, I had office hours, and I couldn't pass one test.
Wow.
And he knew I was really doing that, and he passed me along. I got a D, and that was my only D I got at university, and that's all I needed. But the support, though, I mean, a lot of people didn't understand what I was going through.
That is so cool that they recognized it and that
Yeah.
no matter what they did, they were never going to be able to help you and they didn't want to be the people to stand in your way. That's really cool.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
is cool.
So they were the opposite of the assholes that told you that you were never going to make it past community college if you were even lucky to get that far, right? What a horrible thing to say to a young mind, you know?
They wanted her to be a welder, man.
Yeah.
You know, trade
Well,
schools.
I think this was a learning support teacher. Before they knew I couldn't drive, thought I should do protective services. Now,
Huh.
how was I supposed to drive a police car?
Well,
Right?
and then I guess in their defense, you hadn't been diagnosed yet, but
Yeah.
the trades were actually the worst advice for you because you have the problem with your hands as well, right?
Yeah.
You
If I
you were
was
never
gonna
going to be a carpenter.
No, wasn't gonna be a carpenter. I have great respect for the person who does my hair, but I certainly cannot cut my own hair
Sure.
or do color or things like that. I would get a lot of complaints. I could probably do the culinary arts program, but it just isn't really what I feel like I was cut out to do. So it would have been a lot harder for me to do a lot of those things. If I
Especially
was
with the hands.
what?
Especially with the hand thing.
Yeah,
That
For
would be
sure.
hard.
Yeah, cutting things. That would be really hard.
Is
Yeah.
that the hardest thing to do as a teacher, especially of, kids with special needs? Is that the hardest thing is to get them to come to terms with they're not going to be able to do certain things that they see what we would consider, I hate this word, but normal kids, right?
It really is. It's hard whenever maybe they can't do something, or a lot of our students are in regular ed classes and basic classes.
Right. And I guess that's what I was alluding to. They
Yeah.
see those kids on a daily basis. They go play kickball or whatever. And like you were saying, when you were a young girl, you couldn't tell that the ball was coming at you,
Yeah.
right? So you were scared every time.
Right, right.
Things like
exactly.
that, you were never going to get over that because you had a visual,
Yeah.
negative that was keeping you from being able to see that ball coming at you.
And a lot of times too, yeah, excuse me, that's a factor. And then I also get our students, they can't hide. They know, everybody knows they go to learning support or they go to resource to get a test read. They know they have a class with the study hall there. And that carries a lot of stigma for so many of us. I
Right.
can just
Well, and a
remember
lot
that.
of them probably have visual outward where,
Yeah.
maybe they have ticks that people see, right? And they can't
Right.
hide that. So that's even worse when you're in that shape where
Yeah.
I know just from being a kid myself, and we had several, we had a learning needs department in our high school for sure.
Yeah.
And I was always the person that would defend those,
Yeah.
tell the bullies, hey, why, that kid can't defend himself, man. It's
Right.
not cool, But those are always going to be the kids that people pick on first, is the ones that have the outward ticks, right?
Yeah, and it's more and it's more so because they're afraid. They don't understand. So instead of
I'm glad you said that. I've been meaning
Right,
to say
right.
that too.
And instead of trying to be empathetic and understand the situation, they automatically turn to the bullying side because they don't get it and they're afraid of it. I worked in before I do what I do now. I worked in the field with mentally handicapped and mental illness people. So anything and everything in the spectrum from autism to mental retardation, mild MR, extreme MR, affective organic disorder, bipolar, manic depressives, Down syndrome, all levels of functionality, low functioning to high functioning. My group of guys that I took care of, until they opened their mouth, you wouldn't know. Like I flew one, took him home a couple times to Eugene, Oregon, and unless he opened his mouth, you'd have no idea. You'd have no idea. Now, when I put the headphones on him for the plane ride because music kind of soothed him, I didn't realize he was going to start singing, and he started singing "Knocking on Heaven's Door" because he loved Guns N' Roses on the plane in the middle of the air, And so once he started singing, it's like, well, I'm not gonna stop him because it's keeping him at bay. But unless you know, you don't know with the bulk of the population I dealt with. But the Down syndrome, you can see them, you can tell them. The autistic, you can see because they have the tics, like Mike said. And they, without exception, all of them are bullied in their lifetime because they just were what you don't understand, you fear. So what do you fear? You feel like you have to exert yourself. You got to be the alpha male, and even in women too, right?
Yeah.
Women are just as bad at bullying as men are. I think a little bit more so, especially in the teenage drama era with females. My wife was bullied by somebody and kind of talked down on her because of looks, and then the irony of life. Now this woman, her face looks like a long horse, and Nikki's this beautiful human, so it's kind of like neener, But we're not those type of people. But it's still kind of that thing, like, yeah, okay, how pretty are you now, but you carry that. Like you carry that. There was a couple kids I was bullied that bullied me, and I could still, I dropped their names. I'm not gonna, but. And it was just more out of fear. For
Yeah.
whatever reason, they were afraid that I had asthma, and I was kind of like Mike's sick kid. If I'm that kid nowadays, I'm kicked out of school because I was gone more than I was there because you know we moved from Illinois because I was going to die. My asthma was so bad, so we moved to Arizona, and there was half the school year sometimes I missed. I got held back in fourth grade because I just didn't go to fourth grade. So when I would show up, I was always the awkward, sickly looking kid. So I was a brilliant punching bag, right? Luckily, it wasn't as bad as it could have been, but I feel that. So, and that goes back to what I said earlier, the fact that you can empower these kids because you've been there, done that, and you're living with it, and you're living proof that you can overcome and you can be successful and you can reach heights that other people didn't believe you could. You're just a superhuman, Michelle. It's like the life resume that I preach. It's just fantastic because
Well,
you
those
could
are
have gone the other way.
those are the people that need it
You
the
know,
most.
you could have taken the easy road and just been like, woe is me, living off the state, living in a van down by the river,
Right.
and not being a productive member of society. Not that your disabilities were that extreme, but I think you follow what I'm saying. It's cool that you've taken the path you have, and you're so out there with everything and sharing and teaching and helping people grow, and that's cool, man. That's a good testament to who you are as a human and who your character is. And so beautiful soul, man, for sure. I can see why Jack and Sparrow love you. Meow. Well, that was awesome. Anything else you want to talk about before we wrap things up?
I just want to encourage people that have disabilities or who don't to know what they want and to be able to find a way to do it. And it's like my dad always told me, success doesn't always come in the package that you expect, but sometimes it comes in something even better.
That's
That's
awesome.
awesome. That is awesome. I love that.
Michelle'sMission.com. This is the Chris and Mike Show. We leave every episode like this. If you're having a bad day, if you're feeling down and depressed and you want to take your life, don't do it. Somebody loves you. Somebody will miss you. Don't leave a hole in somebody's heart because you didn't have the courage to just step back, take a breath, meditate, reach out to somebody that you know will talk to you, help you get off that cliff that you're on. Tomorrow will be a better day. So wake up and be present and be involved because somebody does love you like we do. Thank you very much, Michelle, for being on the show. We will get you
Absolutely.
all the content once we get it up and running. Definitely, as you go on in life, if you ever want to come back on, just shoot us a message. We like having people come back on and update us where they're at.
Yeah,
in
if
their
you're
lives
going to
and things like
release that third
Mike.
anthology in November,
Yeah,
reach out to us.
Be happy to.
yeah, because this is how we roll. Nice, easy conversation, have fun, learn, and share your story. And again, everybody, if you want to find Michelle, it's michellesmission.com. It's plural. Just don't do Michelle because then all these other things come up. It's michellesmission.com, and you'll find all her stuff. Book her. Have her on your show. Have her come talk to you because, this has been a great conversation. We've learned a lot. Invisible disabilities are there. You just don't know they're there. So someone like Michelle helps empower and get people to live fuller and healthier and much more productive lives, right?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Peace. See you guys all next week. Thank you. Love you, brother.
Peace. Love you too, man. Thanks, Michelle.